Welcome to the Builder in the Trenches. My name is David.
My name is Sam, and this is a Build in the Trenches podcast. I'm sure you guys are asking, what does it even mean to build in the trenches? Well, you see out there on social media, so many people just, saying, oh my God, I had this much success, all of this success in such a short period of time, but no one actually shows you the struggles of day to day. And that's exactly what this podcast is about. This podcast is about entrepreneurs struggling on a daily basis. David, what do you think?
Yeah, we're going to be putting our blood, sweat, and a lot of caffeine, but the bad thing is we're building in public. So you'll either see us actually fail in public, or we're going to be doing some really cool stuff. Either way, or you're going to be on a cool journey to ride.
I know. So, what are the projects we're currently working on? I am currently in print on demand / manufacturing / e-commerce. So I run this company called PrintFits. We do custom apparel. We rival others like Custom Ink and Rush Order Tees. And the goal here is just to get to that certain point. I do have a facility right here in Los Angeles. And we basically just print and on-demand stuff. We also do a few on-demand e-commerce stores. So we're rivaling companies like Print to Find, Printful over there, $1 billion valuations. And then my goal this month is actually just to use cold email to get more people who are interested in print on demand, just to gain that higher LTV customer, gain that more B2B customer. So that's basically where I'm at. On the side note, I am also dabbling in various different other things. Another brand called Hire, which is my weekend project right now. For the last 3 to 4 months, it was a hat brand, just because that was my superpower. And David saw, me getting super excited about one specific brand. And then, recently, I have, been thinking about pivoting, and more of that later. And David is very interested in, what I have to say. But David, let's get into your story.
Yeah, so my story within entrepreneurship in general, I've ran a high-ticket e-com store. I was selling saunas and sauna heaters, which I ran up to 10K per month before I had to shut it down due to shipping costs. But my day job, in my 9 to 5, I work at internet brands under the subsidiary of WebMD, and I have a partner, Meg, which you will learn more about, and working on the home care / the elderly care space. So that's something that I'm really interested in building, and that's kind of my story so far.
All right, so as you guys can see, we're just two random scrappy startup owners, and we're just trying to make it in life. So yesterday I was actually looking at the founder of Built,
okay.
of Built, the actual the company card that you're able to use.
So let's talk about it for the viewers. What is Built?
So Built is actually just an actual card, a credit card that you're able to use just to pay your rent and actually get credit card points. So I know most of the people in this world, their highest expense is
rent.
the rent.
Right.
Yeah, rent or even mortgage.
Yeah.
And over the past, however many years that we've been doing that, no one has been able to pay their rent using their credit card. And it's the most common sense thing ever.
I know.
But you don't think about it. You don't think about, hey, why is the system built like that? So there was this guy, who ended up fixing this and created this credit card company. As you were saying, that he took a huge market share from American Express.
No, American Express was actually funding for those points program, because the goal is for people to enter into that space and then use their credit card on a daily basis.
Oh my God.
Because the whole thing about just any credit card companies is their LTV, right?
Yeah.
LTVs are insane. I'm sure if you look at your wallet, you have an Amex that you use on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Every time you're using it, you get some type of transaction fee. Yeah. And that really builds up over the span of 10 to 20 years. So essentially this guy, he was building it up. He made an agreement with these credit card companies to give points to renters. Yeah. And the benefit of why people are even willing to accept giving points out for these these property management companies is their LTV which is lifetime value for a resident is going to be longer because they're getting credit card points. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So obviously I'm more inclined to, let's say, stay in this unit because I'm getting points.
Yeah.
Because they're taking Built.
Yeah.
So
it's actually funny how I even came across this founder was because of his wedding. So and being a brown guy myself, when I look at other people who are kind of have a similar look, I'm just like, oh my God, this guy can make it. That means there's a little bit of motivation for me to be actually, make it as well. So I see this guy. This guy's having a lavish wedding in Egypt, right in front of the pyramids, and I was just like, okay, who is this guy? And I go deep into this rabbit hole, like a whole weekend. Like, who is this guy? Like, what did he do? How did he do that? And then I was like, oh my god, this guy's very interesting. And I, started following the guy, and then found out he became a billionaire at the age of 35, which is pretty young to become a billionaire. And just because of this one specific idea, and he found product market fit, and he was able to succeed pretty highly. So very cool story that we were actually discussing about yesterday.
Other projects that we've seen also gain a lot of momentum. We were talking about Wiz a few days ago.
Yeah.
Do you want to also dive into Wiz?
Absolutely.
So Wiz was founded, I believe, in 2020. All of them are like cracked engineers. So I believe there's a thing called like 80-20, or like there's a unit in the IDF, and it's like a very special ops. And a lot of these people came from those special operations.
Yeah.
And within Israel, they got the engineering talent, and they've used the sunrise method. So essentially, did I talk about the sunrise method?
You didn't, no.
Okay, so the sunrise method is where you stress test potential problems that you're gonna have within your startup.
Yeah.
And then you, for the first year, all you do is gather the problems and then test it out with other potential customers.
Jeez.
So stress testing is like kind of what engineers do to make sure their hypotheses are already tested for like real life scenarios, right? So what they did was, okay, we have a potential idea. We want to make sure that, we recognize if they show up to a demo, why did they not convert into a paid client? If we tell them a price, why did they not convert at that price? So they would get all of this data early on, so that in the forthcoming years, when they actually have these objections, it's so easy for them to handle.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think, one of the board members, I think his name's Eli, something like Eli Gilman. And one of the cool things he did was he found CAPTCHA. Like he literally found CAPTCHA, guys. Like when you guys go on Google and then it says, are you a bot? And you have to select images. He helped create that. And then one of his cybersecurity startups, like his whole idea was presenting to Google, hey, Google, like you guys have a problem. But Google was saying, we don't have a problem. We haven't been hacked before. So there was no really like pain point, if that makes sense. But so what he did was he figured out a vulnerability, creating the vulnerabilities, identify it, present it to them, and then also fix it. So it's kind of like you show them the problem and then you give them the solution right there. And apparently Wiz it started in 2020.
Yeah.
They grew to like 100 million in ARR within, I don't even know what their timeline is, but extremely quickly.
Yeah.
They got an acquisition offer in 2023, 2024, right?
Yeah.
For
$32 billion.
32 billion? No, that's when they got acquired.
Yeah.
But even before, they got an acquisition for like 20 something billion.
That's insane.
So just by waiting out a year, they were able to increase their market cap by like over billions of dollars.
And we're talking this in a bad market. Like VCs are dried up. People don't want to invest. No companies are trying to do acquisition. Google itself, is like basically trying to figure out other ways that they're able to make money because of ChatGPT and AI in general taking a huge market share from them. And 32 billion for Google, it's still kind of a big deal, especially in this specific market. That just goes to show how big of a product market fit there was with the Wiz. And overall, we did talk a little bit about Wiz, David. So what's our audience able to take home right now in terms of actionable steps that we can learn from Wiz, their product market fit, how fast they were able to grow, and what we're able to do right now just to make sure we can have an exit like that?
That's a good question. So one major insight is before building anything, you have to talk to users. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I've ran so many tests of just building scrappy projects that nobody wanted to use for months on end. So instead, this is something I did we're working, grinding it out, building in the trenches truly. And I was working on an email campaign, blasting out like 300 emails, just asking, hey, would you be interested in just jumping on a call so that I could learn more about your workflow where it could be automated potentially?
Yeah.
So number one, talk to users before you build out anything.
Yeah.
If you don't have any pain point, you're not going to be able to charge any money for it. And essentially, that's the lifeblood of making something work or even stick. You could have the coolest product, coolest cybersecurity startup, but if nobody wants to pay for it, you don't really have, a good demand for it. You know what I mean? You want to sell hot dogs to, what is it called? The
hungry people.
The hungry people. Exactly. So the best way to sell hot dogs is to a starving crowd, which is like in front of a baseball game or in front of an NBA game where there's so much demand.
Yeah.
Everyone's willing. But if you're, just out in front of the grocery store, I myself, I'm just gonna ignore it because I'm not that hungry, and grocery store's right behind me, way cheaper.
So that basically takes us into the fact that whatever startup you're building, product market fit is one of the biggest things that you need to even figure out even before, investing a lot of money, a lot of time into any specific idea. And talking about product market fit, there's this new crowd of people called, I think his name is Blake something. And
Blake Anderson. We're talking about PMF or Die.
Yeah.
So this was a challenge. I think it was, there's the guy of Huel.
Yeah.
Huel actually sponsored, the founders, I believe, Brian Coogan. Brian Hogan. I may be butchering every one of these founders' names, but essentially what he did was he gave him, Brian, I believe, the Blake Anderson, and his co-founder, $25,000 to be locked in a New York high-rise apartment for 90 days to find product market fit or die. And so I've been following the project for like a couple of weeks, and it was so interesting because they were just filming their entire days.
Yeah.
They couldn't leave. They had treadmills where they were exercising inside, but to say the least, do you know what happened with product
I
market
don't
fit?
know.
They actually closed it down. They weren't able to.
No way.
Yeah. So they got to 10K per month. And, I think it's monthly recurring. No, it's ARR.
Yeah.
But he closed it down because I think he moved back to San Diego.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not doing this anymore.
So,
and then his co-founder also split up.
That's insane.
Yeah, because they couldn't ship fast enough.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So actually, quick question in terms of that. So this guy basically, reaches out to them. He's like, hey, here's 25,000. How much of this entire, project do you think was based upon being in a high rise in New York?
That is true. If we were in a high rise, I'll definitely.
Yeah. Would you have watched and be this invested if it was not in a high rise in New York?
That is a good point. Their views were immaculate, I must say.
Yeah.
It was very aesthetic. But I think besides that point, Blake Anderson, I think, is like a once in a lifetime, like generational type talent.
Yeah.
Just being able to spot opportunities and the fact that he's replicated it over 3 times. So he's the founder of Umax, RizGPT, CalAI.
Yeah.
And I think CalAI does like 4 million in recurring revenue.
Yeah.
Probably even more.
Yeah.
Like to be frankly honest, because I remember on MFM, my first million for all you entrepreneur nerds.
Yeah.
I think they were saying like they're valued at 100 million, like the Zach Yagardi. They were saying that's how the company's valued on.
Again, I think in terms of CalAI, I was listening to a podcast with the Tiny founder. What's his name?
Tiny founder? Andrew Wilkinson.
Andrew Wilkinson, yeah.
The goat,
yeah.
Cash flowing
so,
business.
So he was basically talking about how like if he was in Blake's position, he would be selling all these, like, he still considers them rappers.
Right.
And, you're just one update from ChatGPT away from your entire business being obsolete.
Yeah.
And overall, no one is also, going to give you, like what, like that, the multiple that usually a SaaS gets, because despite, they get a lot of hate of being ChatGPT rappers. It's because they actually are. And again, if you are able to make money, I do believe as startup founders right now. So let's say if you're you find some product market fit tomorrow, you wrap ChatGPT into something, you create an app that does really well. Per Andrew Wilkinson, it is a good idea to churn and burn those things just because AI is just gonna make everything obsolete.
It's almost a commodity is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like the fact that they have distribution and have so much network effect within it, I think it works. I think one of the pain points I think that he said was that there wasn't enough like network.
Yeah.
But I thought, from my understanding, because their whole distribution strategy was leveraging other influencers who are like within the healthcare niche or just like gym space, talking about their body transformation being CalAI. I thought that in itself was a network.
Yeah.
But I think he meant more sticky, where like it could be like a workout program or something beyond just diet and nutrition.
Yeah, so I think he was talking about network effects and how any app only survives if there's a network effect. If if someone else is going to convince you, hey, come over here. So one of the apps that actually comes to mind is Strava.
Strava. That's a beautiful app.
Beautiful app.
So crazy story. My marathon starts next week. Yeah, literally next week. And we've been using Strava for like the long distance.
Yeah.
And after you finish like a very long distance, it shows you like a GPS like that follows you almost.
Yeah.
And it's like the most coolest UI ever.
Yeah.
And the fact that you could invite friends, you could all kind of share and whatnot.
The network effect.
The network effect.
Yeah, and a lot of people are just, posting that on their social medias. They're like, oh, I ran, this
Yeah.
much today.
Yeah.
Which is free advertising right
Also,
there.
it's kind of like a status thing too.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a cool to be a runner, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And they also, rode the wave of just, running just being cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Running being made sexy.
Yeah.
So there's another thing, Raw Dog Run Club. Have I ever
I have not, no.
So Raw Dog Run Club, I think it was a group of like these 4 people, and they all had like their own social channels, and then there's a guy named Ian Fons,
Yeah.
and then there's like Darren, and then there's Tim, and then there's one more, Noah Roulette. So
Yeah.
I've been following them for a minute, but
Yeah.
what they did was in Texas, they found out, okay, what if we just start doing these? I think maybe during the pandemic area. So every single I think the first event they had like 40 people show up.
Yeah.
Just posting on their socials.
Yeah.
And then the next event it would compound week
Jeez.
over week to the point where they had 400 people coming on Saturday, just showing up just for running.
That's insane.
And then now what's crazy is that they would get sponsorships, right? So they would get sponsored from Gymshark or local like cold plunge shops.
Yeah.
So they could kind of invite their fan base into doing like these activities, and then maybe get some merch, maybe get some coffee,
Yeah.
what have you.
So one quick thing. I mean, I think since we're just builders building in the trenches,
Yeah.
I think what they could have done right there, that at least the founders of them, they could have literally just created their own brand.
They did.
They did.
They did.
Oh,
So it's literally called the Raw Dog like Run Club, but that they made it into like a logo and a merch.
Wow.
And they would do collaborations with Gymshark, which is
Amazing.
Which is like the best in terms of like influencer marketing. I feel like they kill it with just marketing in general.
and I think in person
And they got
events,
swagger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have the swagger to do that.
Yeah.
Because think about it, what's the premise of like going to like run clubs?
Yeah.
To meet people.
Yeah, to meet people.
Like there's a whole reason, like in Santa Monica, there's the Venice Run Club. A lot of people who's coming from the East Coast, moving into for professional jobs and whatnot.
Yeah.
They need friends.
Yeah.
They want to date, and then running is like, oh, we have similar values of being athletic.
Yeah.
We like, the beach.
Yeah.
It's like a conjunction of all of those positive traits,
Yeah, and I think overall, like, I have seen a huge trend shift in people just wanting to, meet other people in person.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Have you heard about there's like there's a app where you just meet. I don't know what the app is called, but essentially you go on it and it's 2 random people based on your personality. I think it's called Third Space. Have you heard about Third Space?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. So that I think has grown like almost internationally because there's such a loneliness epidemic going on globally. Not to talk about only there's also a fertility shortage. Like people are not having babies, they're having less sex, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
So there's a strong need for community, like as you said, in-person events.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we also see podcasters like All In. We were talking about this yesterday, like All In Summit. Crazy story.
Yeah.
Sam was able to crack.
I know. So basically, I was able to go to actually sneak into All In Summit and see Elon speak. I talked with a bunch of VCs, and I was actually depressed after just coming back from it. And I thought
you were depressed because of Mike Posner's story.
Yeah. So basically, I'm like, there's this DJ. I'm sure you guys know like this song.
I took a pill in Ibiza.
All right. Yeah. So basically, that like he wrote that song, and I was just kind of talking to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like I was just randomly playing tennis with Richard Branson's on his private island, and we were just talking about something insane." And I was just like, I came back home, and I was just like, does my life even matter? Like, there's literally people out there, that are able to have such a huge impact. And then what am I doing over here? Building random tiny startups that don't really mean much.
Thus, building in the trenches, baby.
Building in the trenches.
Building
Because
in the trenches.
that's the beauty of the trenches. Like, realistically speaking,
the front line people, they don't really get too much credit. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're the soldiers up in the front, taking a lot of bullets, a lot of projects, that may not even turn out well.
Yeah.
But if we do well, we get all of the entire army behind us.
Yeah.
Of all the momentum that we got. That's kind of like the analogy.
I know. I mean, so the goal here is just to, go back with, all the officers and, do the political landscape and just, talk more with the opponents. But unfortunately, as, startup owners, startup founders, especially building in the trenches, You know, you gotta take the.
You gotta be scrappy.
You gotta be scrappy. You gotta take the large hits. But how do you think those people all the way in the back, the officers? How do you think they became the officers?
They got leverage.
They got
Think about it. Labor is the biggest, like it's
Yep.
the oldest
Yep.
leverage points. But now, I mean, I'm using some of Naval's wisdom here. It's like there's so many different ways of building leverage. There's not only labor. Labor is like the oldest form, but the smarter ones are coding.
Yep.
There's also media.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that he preached, because media is like you build one content, and who knows, maybe this gets seen by one person. It's us.
Yeah.
But it could be viewed by two people, and then as we continue,
Compounds.
we could potentially find an audience that has similar interests as us.
Yeah.
And sharing practical insights. Hopefully this is entertaining, but also very actionable.
Yeah, and it's also funny. We were just talking about it. So me and David, we always just like hang out and talk about stuff like this, like nerdy stuff like this, and we're like, why don't we just start recording this? Because we're already wasting our time doing it. Why not just try to find that PMF for this specific podcast, the product market fit, baby? Because there's so many people like us. Unfortunately, again, as we were talking about in like the loneliness epidemic, I mean, startup founders are usually probably the loneliest people out there.
Oh, for sure.
Because you have no one else. Like, society wants you to live a certain type of way. No one actually teaches you how you're gonna do a certain thing. How are you gonna, go find product market fit? How are you gonna do something small? You just go find, random YouTube videos. You go on, sketchy websites like Black Hat World and try to, figure out your way.
You're giving like wisdom right now. I'm like, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, so I would advise you, not to go on that website and like not to explore, because there's various ways to exploit this world just on there. As long as you're just out there, it's just like you can find stuff over there. But yeah, like long story short, this is exactly why we're creating this this podcast, and this is a great day one. I mean, we talked about very interesting stuff. So should we get into some questions?
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
All right, perfect. I know we wrote down a few questions. So number one is the hustle culture overrated? Should entrepreneurs focus more on balance than burnout? That's a hard one, huh?
What are your thoughts on that question? I mean, I feel like every people that I see that have succeeded, they don't really watch like the hustle content and whatnot. They just do the work.
Yeah. I have a very interesting answer. I mean, in terms of hustle culture, I think hustle culture is overrated. Mm-hmm. I don't think hustling is overrated. So I know you might think, okay, you just said a whole bunch of nothing right now.
Yeah.
But so what is it? So the culture itself is, whenever you're talking about the culture, you're like, oh yeah, like basically what we're talking about. We're talking about other successful people.
True.
But again, at least we're recording this and trying to find some sort of product market fit over here. At least we're doing something. But just imagine just being like someone listening to all these success stories and doing that all your life, not doing anything. And that's what today's world has kind of become, man. I think if you scroll on Instagram, I have this.
There's way more consumers than actual creators.
Yeah.
Right.
And like again, that's why building in public is such a big thing, because unfortunately people don't want to build companies themselves because they're lazy. They'd rather watch someone else. They watch hustle porn. Which is, everyone saying, oh my God, let's go do something, let's crack the matrix. And then they go find a different pocket of the internet where some people are trying to crack the matrix. But instead of, them doing it themselves, they become consumers of that content, thinking they're doing something. But in fact, you're kind of just being, taken advantage of, and you're basically selling your attention to these people who are building in public, and you're going to eventually end up becoming their consumer because they're just taking advantage of you. So overall, what you need to do, I think hustle culture, podcasts and YouTube videos that are actionable, those are very important. But if you're just listening to, there's a large entertainment podcasts like all the time, and you're like, hey, this is a very productive work. No, it's just entertainment, just masked in a different way. Mm-hmm. Like realistically speaking, My First Million, I love Sam Parr and Sean Puri. Realistically speaking, I remember listening to their podcast like even 3 years ago, and there was some actual insights. Unfortunately, they've just diluted their audience so much that now there's no actionable insights over there. It's just more like just the shiny object and like more like like the more mainstream stuff that you're not going to be able to take actions. But on the other hand, when I do have a new favorite podcast, which is a Greg Eisenberg. He's gotten to a very similar level to My First Million, but he just took a different route. He took a more actionable route. So his audience, I guarantee, can make more money to him rather than Sam and Sean. What do you think about this?
No, I think that's completely right. I mean, I consider myself as a consumer. If I track my time right now compared to like how much time I'm spending on building compared to consuming, I'm exactly what you know, consuming a lot, you know, of like high, and it just makes you feel good, makes you feel productive. But at the end of the day, if you consider yourself, what have you gotten done this week? Like actual, you know, outcomes. Yeah, I really haven't done much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I believe that actionable insights and then actually making sure that your audience is able to translate that into action, I think is probably the highest moat within the podcast space.
I know you were talking about a Harvest app. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I've been using it for just this week to actually, I mean, to hold myself accountable along with my partner to actually see how much time am I actually invested into the project. Because imagine if someone was watching you on a daily basis, and how, like, do you think they would take your goal seriously if they were able to look at you and how you spend your time? Like, for example, if I watch myself, I know for a fact that I'm not even remotely close to being a full-on like actual founder or being called like a hustler.
Yeah.
Because I'm not close to putting enough time into building.
Yeah. But again, I know it's just, again, you don't need to put in like that much time for you to consider yourself as a founder. It's just more like, it's more of a mindset. You know, you're just taking, you know, a specific path, and it's a very long journey. Mm-hmm. As long as you can slow it down and keep it consistent, realistic, it's a game.
Yeah.
You cannot lose
if you don't quit.
Yeah, if you don't quit. And it's just...
But you also have to be smart, because I feel like that question also entails like the hustle culture of, you know, just the weekend warrior types who they're just rah-rahing their entire lives.
Yeah.
Or it's something with like where, you know, they take care of like health and other priorities as well.
Yeah.
So for example, like a lot of people say, oh, if you have an idea, like passion, chase your passion. But most people don't know their passion. I feel like, you know, you have to give something. And I feel like if you become good at the skill, and you suck for a long time, but you're able to endure it long enough, then the process becomes enjoyable, because I feel like just the action of being good at something, it's riveting, you know? I think that's like the essence of it. But I if I look at, like, for example, I'm thinking about Brian Johnson. If I look at his photos when he was building his $350 million exit company, what was it called? I think
they sold a Brain Trust or
Braintree,
something? Yeah, Braintree,
yeah. It's a payments company that PayPal was using. A lot of software companies were utilizing. But essentially, like, he was saying that he was eating a pizza late at night when he came back. His work was so stressful. And I'm like, I mean, I'm always an advocate for like healthy lifestyle, but I myself, like, if I look at my grocery habits, like I may snack, I may like sneak and like, you know, some pop chips or something, you know, something unhealthy here and there. So I mean, I'm for sure like 100% agreed, but to actually live that lifestyle, it's always a battle, like a day in and day out. I feel like beating other competitors may be easy, but like beating yourself and like holding yourself up to like a high standard of value, it's like, that's remarkable. And I feel like few people that's in my mind that I feel like who actually live it is like David Goggins, Ryan Holiday. Like, I feel like some people who's truly dedicated to craft don't really care about social norms, live these. So I think I was telling you, I think Van Gogh, for example, he has a letter. He wrote a book. I think it was to his brother. And it's so sad because he says like, I may like, his entire work has not been appreciated. And he says like, I'm so sorry to my, you know, to his family members because he wasn't really making money. He wasn't really producing, but like rather than his artworks, right? So in terms of material success, he wasn't successful. But in terms of after his death, as like his art became more and more appreciated, all the beauty came after his passing.
So what you're saying here is that, you know, hustle culture and success is not just, you know, monetary success. It's success within health. It's success within the type of life that you're living.
It's all domains.
And a lot of people, especially in America, it's just, you know, I mean, when you listen to like hustle stuff, unfortunately, no one ever says, hey, you know, like live a balanced life. It's better to have like less monetary success. And no one's ever like, you know, saying, oh yeah, you know, just, they're like, oh, give up on your health, give up on this. Like, they're basically not really saying that you need to have a balanced life.
I think the reason also is because on social media, extremes are always like more valued. Like, for example, I'm thinking about like 6ix9ine or like any celebrities that had gotten mainstream virality. It's always like something that's so extreme, you know? Like, it's so not normal where it's like so outrageous. So it just like hijacks our dopamine and like our serotonin levels, like our system, where it's like, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before. So that's why we keep on feeding it without even knowing that we're a consumer. But I fall into the traps. I'm so I mean, I'm still a social media addict.
Yeah.
If I'm on my phone, doom scrolling and whatnot.
Yeah.
But these are for sure patterns that I have to constantly remind myself because, yeah, it's true. It's
Yeah. So now we're getting a little bit, towards the end of the first episode of the podcast. I would love to, people who've stuck around to over here, I would love to, share them like our background.
Yeah.
And, just overall, like, where
we're headed.
Where we're headed. Like, what's our main goal with this podcast specifically?
Yeah. So for me, I think building in the trenches, I think that name encapsulates what we're doing. And
Yep.
also, the best like insight that I've heard from like other mentors is you don't want to be learning from people who's like 10 steps ahead of you, just like a few, 2 or 3 steps. That's way more actionable.
Yeah.
So hopefully some of these like stories and insights from our personal experience, but also learning from other founders who've done very good things. Those are inspiration.
Yeah.
But the perspiration is us like actually showing you what we've done. Like, oh, we ran an email campaign, it flopped. But like, you're like, okay, like this is
Yeah.
insightful. Like, they suck, or like
I know.
I gotta get better at like email campaigns. But it's just like sharing like the day-to-day journeys, and then also hopefully inviting some of you guys to sit down here with us,
Yeah.
and then have some really cool stories about what you guys are building.
Yeah.
So, number one, getting better at public speaking,
Yeah.
being able to articulate ourselves better. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think that's a true skill that you gotta get better and better at,
Yeah.
of like expressing ideas. And then number two, it's being able to share really cool stuff, because we share a lot of like fun stuff like off the camera,
Yeah.
but we don't really share it. So now we have like an outlet of not only just, I guess, bouncing off ideas, but you guys can also join us as well.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, similar stuff over here. I think it's just, I do believe that founders, especially who are, in the early stage of their lives, they need realistic, people to hang out with, rather than, Alex Hermosi, who's just going to talk about, hey, 10 best ways to make $1 million in the next 6 months. I completely understand that you want to listen to that more.
That's
but-
top of funnel right
Yeah,
there.
that's top of funnel. But like, let's go, get closer to your funnel, where again, right now, we're not selling any courses yet. maybe if you guys, eventually need it, maybe we're gonna have to, bring them up. But yeah, overall, the goal here is just to, just show you guys how we're hustling in the trenches, having a great time, and how you are able to take, actions from us. And our goal here is the first 100 people that are listening to this, we want you guys to succeed, and we want you to come sit over here right on the couch and like, come talk with us. We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna, ask you, we're like, hey, how did you succeed? How did you succeed this well? And I mean, that's basically like all we're gonna be talking about.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to conclude before we leave here, David?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. We have a lot of cool, more inspiring stories, but also getting into the nitty gritty. As you heard, Sam is building PrintFits in real time, and I myself I'm trying to go from 0 to 1. So we're going to be sharing some actionable insights, like experiments we've done on a weekly basis. So stay tuned. We're going to be filming this on 11 a.m. plus or minus like 1 hour every single Saturday. So hopefully when you see this, it will be like a regular schedule. So stay tuned.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Let's go and build in the trenches. Let's do it. Bye.